I have to be honest, I was sitting there watching the screen, and the moment I saw Jason standing there, I knew something was fundamentally different. I wasn't ready for that. We are so used to seeing Jason with a gun in his hand, wearing his leather jacket, ready to go to war for Sonny or Carly. We expect him to be the stoic enforcer, the man who absorbs everyone else's pain and trauma without blinking. But this time, he was standing at Drew's door with literal boxes of his belongings. Not a weapon, not a warning. Just a man who looked so incredibly tired of fighting. That changed everything. I genuinely wasn't expecting that. My jaw actually dropped. For years, we have watched these two men tear each other apart, and suddenly, we are looking at two exhausted fathers who just want to protect their kids. The sheer emotional weight of that one scene completely broke me. I can't help feeling that this is the exact moment we have been waiting for since the whole memory mapping nightmare began. I keep thinking about everything Jason has been through recently and why this specific decision hit so incredibly hard. Think about his history. The captivity, the torture, the constant fear that Danny was going to pay the ultimate price for his father's dangerous lifestyle. We have seen Jason sacrifice his own happiness time and time again for the mob, for the territory, for everyone else's safety. He lost years with Danny. He missed the milestones, the birthdays, the simple moments of just being a dad because he was always on call for the syndicate. But seeing him finally look at Danny and realize that the mob life is a toxic cycle that will eventually swallow his son whole, it hit so hard. Jason is stepping away. He is actually walking away from the violence to give Danny a normal life. After watching him take the fall for Rocco and lose even more time in a secret prison, this realization that he cannot afford to lose another second with his boy is the most profound character growth we have seen from him in decades. And then there is Drew. I have to admit, I have been so incredibly frustrated with Drew lately. His descent into this vengeful, bitter man was painful to watch. Between Willow trying to silence him, Nina pushing his wheelchair into the lake, and the constant corporate warfare, Drew was losing his soul. He was becoming unrecognizable. But then Scout steps in. Scout, who has been dealing with so much teenage angst and sadness because her family is completely shattered. When Scout looked at her dad and said that all she wanted more than money, more than power, more than anything in the world was to see her dad and her uncle Jason just sit down and have dinner together like a normal family. Guys, I lost it. I was in tears. That innocent, pure desire from a traumatized teenager was the wake-up call Drew desperately needed. It shattered all his walls. It broke through the anger and the bitterness that had been consuming him. Let's talk about that moment on the doorstep again, because it is etched into my brain. Jason showing up, looking for a safe haven, not for himself, but for Danny. He didn't know how he was going to be received. And Drew didn't yell. He didn't bring up the past. He didn't throw all the years of resentment, the stolen memories, or the twin swap trauma in Jason's face. He just smiled. A real, genuine smile, and invited his twin brother to move in. I can't believe someone finally wrote that scene. We have been starved for this brotherhood. They have shared the same face, the same memories, the same trauma, and for the first time, they are sharing a home. Watching Jason drop his bags in Drew's living room felt like a massive exhale that I didn't even know I was holding. It was raw, it was quiet, and it was perfect. It felt like decades of storytelling finally paying off in the most quiet, domestic way possible. I keep thinking about the psychological toll this entire journey has taken on both of them. Remember when Drew first arrived in town and genuinely believed he was Jason? He had Jason's memories, Jason's feelings, Jason's entire life mapped onto his brain. And when the real Jason returned, it shattered Drew's reality. For years, that shared trauma was the very thing that kept them apart. It was a constant, painful reminder of what was stolen from both of them. But now, that exact same shared history is what is pulling them together. They understand each other in a way that literally no one else on the planet ever could. When Jason looks at Drew, he doesn't see an imposter anymore. He sees a survivor. And when Drew looks at Jason, he doesn't see the man who took his life back. He sees a brother who is just as scarred and exhausted as he is. That shift in perspective is masterclass writing, and it hits me right in the chest every single time they share a scene. I love this storyline with every fiber of my being. Watching Jason wake up and take Danny to school, watching Drew make breakfast and focus on Scout, it is the domestic healing content that these characters deserve. Seeing Danny and Scout become best friends, filling that huge empty house with laughter and chaotic teenage energy, is everything I never knew I needed. Danny has always needed a stable environment, away from the constant threat of bullets flying through windows. And Scout desperately needed her dad to be present, not plotting revenge against his enemy. Seeing these two brothers navigate fatherhood together, stumbling through the mundane tasks of making lunches and checking homework, is brilliant. It humanizes them in a way the show hasn't allowed in years. Let's take a second to talk about Danny and Scout, because these two kids are the real heroes of this storyline. Danny has been acting out, getting into trouble, and carrying the heavy burden of the family legacy on his young shoulders. He has been so desperate for his father's attention and guidance. And Scout? Scout has been lost in the shuffle of corporate takeovers and bitter vendettas, quietly breaking down while the adults around her fought their endless wars. Seeing them come together under one roof is pure magic. Danny stepping up as the protective older cousin, and Scout finally having a stable, loving environment where she doesn't have to worry about her dad disappearing again. They are healing each other just as much as Jason and Drew are healing. It is a beautiful parallel. The kids are breaking the generational curse of violence and abandonment, and I am entirely here for it. But something still bothers me. I have this deep, nagging frustration about how much time was stolen from them. I am so angry that it took nearly drowning in a lake, surviving secret prisons, and endless mob wars for them to realize they are family. Why did they have to lose years to Sonny's wars and corporate greed? I love seeing them bond now, but it also hurts because it reminds me of all the birthdays, the holidays, and the simple everyday moments they missed while they were busy hating each other. It is a beautiful new chapter, but the grief of the lost years is still so heavy. I keep asking myself, why couldn't they have had this realization 5 years ago? Why did they have to suffer so much unnecessary trauma just to reach a point of basic communication? It frustrates me to no end, even while I am loving every single second of their current dynamic. And let's talk about the reactions around town, because I have some strong opinions here. I understand why Sonny is panicking. Sonny has always relied on Jason to be his enforcer, his shield, his right-hand man. Jason has been the foundation of Sonny's entire empire. But I still think Sonny is being incredibly selfish right now. Maybe I'm being unfair, but Sonny needs to look at the bigger picture. Jason went to a secret prison to protect Rocco. Jason gave up his freedom for Sonny's nephew, and now that Jason wants to prioritize Danny and step away from the syndicate, Sonny is acting like it is a massive betrayal? Give me a break. Let the man be a father. Sonny has always preached about family being the most important thing. But the moment Jason chooses his own blood over the mob, Sonny loses his mind. It is hypocritical, and I am judging Sonny so hard for not just giving Jason his blessing and walking away. On the flip side, seeing Carly actually be happy for them, seeing her support this reconciliation, instead of making it about her own needs, was a breath of fresh air. Carly gets it. She knows what it means to lose a child to the violence, and she doesn't want that for Jason. I was so worried Carly was going to interfere, but her reaction was perfect. And Drew, I have to admit, I have judged Drew harshly. I thought he was beyond redemption after the way he acted recently. But seeing him step up as a father and an uncle, that redeemed him in my eyes. He put his ego aside He looked at Jason not as the man who stole his life, but as a fellow father trying to do right by his kid. That takes a massive amount of maturity, and I applaud him for it. This brings me to the fan conflict that is tearing my brain apart right now. Part of me wants to believe that this peace will last forever. I want to see Jason and Drew coaching Little League, attending parent-teacher conferences, and just being boring, happy dads. I want them to argue over who forgot to buy milk, not who has to take out a rival mob boss. Another part of me knows exactly what show I am watching. This is a soap opera. Happiness is just the appetizer before the tragic main course. I honestly can't decide what I want. Do I want them to stay safe in their domestic bubble? Or do I want the inevitable drama? Because let's be incredibly real for a second. The enemies of the mob and the corporate world are watching. They see Jason and Drew living under one roof, and they don't see a happy family. They see an unprecedented, terrifying alliance. If I put myself in the shoes of a villain in town right now, I would be absolutely terrified. Think about it. For years, the bad guys have relied on the fact that Jason and Drew were divided. They could exploit their rivalry, use their hatred against them, and keep them distracted. But a united Jason and Drew, that is a nightmare scenario for any criminal organization. You have the ultimate enforcer who knows every dirty secret of the underworld, teaming up with a highly decorated military operative who has access to elite tactics and massive resources. They are a fortress. And that is exactly why I know this peace cannot last. Someone is going to test those walls. Someone is going to look at this happy, blended family and decide that they need to be broken before they become too powerful to control. I keep thinking about what happens next. The rumor mill is spinning about a massive climax, and the theory that someone is going to kidnap Danny and Scout at the same time is keeping me awake at night. Just imagine it. Some mysterious enemy thinks they can strike at the brothers by taking the only things they care about. If you ask me, that would be the biggest mistake any villain has ever made in the history of this show. Imagine Jason and Drew receiving that phone call. Imagine them realizing their kids are gone. No arguments. No hesitation. No debating who is in charge. Just two lethal, highly trained brothers operating in perfect, terrifying sync. The absolute hellfire they would unleash on whoever took Danny and Scout would be legendary. I can already see the scenes playing out in my head like a cinematic movie. Jason loading his weapons with that cold, dead-eyed focus, while Drew uses his military tactical training to track the kidnapper's digital footprint. The seamless communication between them, moving through an enemy compound like ghosts. They wouldn't even need to speak. They share the same instincts, the same muscle memory. When they finally breach that door and find Danny and Scout, the emotional payoff would be astronomical. It wouldn't just be an action scene. It would be the ultimate proof that their brotherhood survived everything. It would prove that all the memory mapping, the brainwashing, the twin swap drama, none of it could destroy their bond. They aren't just two guys who happen to share DNA anymore. They are a united front. Two fathers who will burn the world down to keep their family safe. If this theory actually plays out on screen, I genuinely believe it will go down as one of the most iconic, emotionally resonant storylines we have ever had. It closes the door on the bitter rivalry and opens a completely new chapter for their legacy. I am so invested in this new dynamic, but I am also terrified of the heartbreak that might come before the victory. Am I the only one feeling this way? Are you guys loving this domestic, fatherly era for Jason and Drew? Or are you just waiting for the other shoe to drop and the bullets to start flying? Do you think Sonny will actually let Jason walk away in peace? Or will his selfishness ruin everything? Guys, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I need to know I'm not the only one losing my mind over this.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.